And with roll call, please.
Commissioner McLeod. Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Wallace.
Here.
Commissioner Lynn.
Here. All right, and with that, we'll do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next we have approval of the meeting minutes. I had no comments. Did any of the other commissioners have any comments, concerns, changes?
No.
So, okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the last planning commission meeting minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And from there, we will move to a legislative public hearing on tiny homes, which is the Benton City Municipal Code 15.08.010 and Benton City Municipal Code 20.09.430 and what is that? Or 20.28. And so with that, I have a script I read to keep them all consistent and so everybody gets their same shake on their public hearings. The procedure for public hearings involving a legislative matter shall be as follows. The public hearing for the title I just read will begin at 6:05 on November 8th. All people wishing to be heard will be given an opportunity during the hearing. I will now read the rules of order. The public hearing will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask your cooperation in the following procedures. We will proceed in orderly fashion. And I'd like to ask your cooperation, the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. When you address the commission, begin by stating your name and address, and please speak slowly and clearly into the microphone. The purpose of the planning commission is to hear and consider the pertinent facts to take action relating to the comprehensive plan. The order of speaking will be the staff presentation, then comments from the applicant, then comments from the proponents, opponents, and others wishing to be heard, then any comments from the applicant in response to those. Then response from the staff to those comments, and then questions from the planning commission members. We will first review the staff report. So please, can we please proceed with the staff report, Millyanne?
Yes. I'm Millyanne Van Devender. I work for AHBL and act as your contracted staff. We were asked to work on this project a while ago because state laws, Washington state laws have changed regarding tiny houses and tiny houses with wheels. And I may refer to them as tiny homes or tiny houses, but it's all encompassing the same subject. They are becoming more and more popular. You've probably seen some of the reality shows, or maybe even talked to somebody that is considering building one or buying one or living in one. And they're becoming a potential option or a good option for affordable living. They're generally very small, smaller than 400 square feet typically. And like I said, the state laws change. So Washington state legislature recognized that this is a good option for affordable housing, and also recognized that there were some regulatory obstacles to allowing tiny homes. For instance, they couldn't be regulated by the building code because they're not necessarily considered a site-built building, so they didn't fall under like the regular International Building Code. But they also aren't regulated at like a recreational vehicle, like an RV or a travel trailer. They don't get the sticker or the certification that those get because they just fall in, they don't fit into that category. So the International Building Code came up with Appendix Q, and Washington State Legislature adopted that as part of what Washington State uses to regulate. And so part of the proposal tonight is to add that into your code. So there are, so like I said, we were asked to work on this and to update your codes to help eliminate obstacles for anyone that wants to do this in Benton City. Eliminate obstacles to building them, and then to help create a pathway that's supported by your comprehensive plan. We took it through the usual process with, we ran it by the attorneys and took it through public notices. We're bringing it to you, and then the goal would be that you would recommend approval or not approval to city council, and then we would take it to city council for a public hearing. So typical channel that these things go through. So there are three major changes. It's pretty simple. The first one is Appendix Q, like I said. So we are proposing that one piece of Benton City Municipal Code 1508010A3 just have an additional statement that says Appendix Q is included with your International Building Code alphabet soup, like all the things that are included in that. And then we are proposing to add a definition for tiny houses with wheels, and tiny house communities. And that's directly from the Washington State language. So that matches up. And then we're also proposing to add language so that these communities or these dwellings could be allowed in your R3M zone, which is your residential 3 manufactured home or mobile home district. And that's where you'll have RV parks and mobile home parks and things. So these would be allowed there. And if there is a piece of property in that zone that's big enough to support a tiny house community, then there is already language in in Title 17, there's already language that a tiny house community could be allowed through the binding site plan process. So that step was already taken. So that's basically it. If you were able to read through your staff report and the proposed ordinance and you have any questions, I will take those when the time is appropriate.
Commissioners, any questions at this time?
No.
Michelle, are you with us yet? Okay, so we'll assume she has no questions at this moment. At this point, should we allow the public to ask their questions? Anybody? You're welcome to ask questions about this proposal at this point.
What are the parking?
Would you please step forward to the microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Benton, I live here in Benton City, but what are the provisions for allowance of parking of vehicles adjacent to these small houses? Are there any requirements? Or what?
May I respond?
Yes, please.
They would be regulated that similar to how mobile homes and RVs are regulated in the R3M zone. So they'd be required to have 2 parking spaces per unit.
2 parking places off street?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe you had an area where you were building these, are there any requirements or any options for providing recreational facilities for the occupants of these places?
It would be the same regulations that are currently required for that are currently required in the R3M zone. So I'll have to look at it real quick. I have it in front of me. There are some landscaping requirements. I'm sorry, I don't remember right off the top of my head. If it's currently required in the zone, they would be subject to the same requirements.
Providing a recreation area.
Yes.
What are the, now we have residential 2 and residential 3. What?
Excuse me, would the gentleman please sit and use the mic?
Can you sit right here?
Would you have him also identify himself, please?
I apologize.
I could do
uh,
that. This is Len Burton. I mentioned that earlier. I live here in Benton City. The question was, is in the regular residential areas, what are the plans of including those in normal residential areas like's been advocated in some larger communities?
So we're not proposing, this proposal tonight does not include any other zones besides our,
R2 or R3.
it does not include those zones
Okay.
at this point.
Okay. And most of these small homes are gonna be very similar to a park model that's used in the recreational industry.
They can be pretty individual.
Well, a park model doesn't have an RVIA sticker and is kind of a morphodite unit in the RV industry. Is that a similar product that will be used, as these are often used as small vacation homes in places randomly affixed to the ground? Does it include them?
It would include anything that falls under the definition.
Park models, you know what park models are?
I'm not familiar with
Okay.
that.
Okay, just a question. It's a term referring to some recreational vehicles that are used for temporary living houses and locations that are permanently set up and not mobile. They don't have wheels on them.
So this includes some that do and do not have wheels.
It does.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't have any other questions then?
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Commissioners, any further discussion? Okay. So let me see what we're looking at. We don't have an applicant here today, do we? There is no applicant associated with this. So
Correct.
I'm looking at the councils. I'm sorry. The councils. So would somebody like to make a motion to for this proposal?
I make a motion, Commissioner Lynn, I make a motion that this proposal for the tiny house be approved.
I second that.
I'll second it. This is Don. This is Punchy. I second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Roll call.
I want to see if we have Michelle here. That's how I can pick her up.
Commissioner McLeod,
Excuse me, I have Michelle up to my phone up to the speaker so she can hear that way.
Okay, does
So
she,
she's actually.
I'd
Are
like to
you
give-
approving? Oh, she's approving.
okay, great.
Commissioner Wallace,
Yes,
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes,
that it passes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have another hearing tonight. Okay, and the second legislative hearing we have on the agenda tonight is a proposal for the 2022 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Docket and Associated Area-Wide Rezone. And again, I go back to my script. I think it's a fair shake here. Okay, the procedures for the public hearing evolving legislative matters shall be substantially as follows. The public hearing for this subject is now open at, what is that, 6:18. Thank you. All persons will be given the opportunity during the meeting to be heard. I will read the rules of orders. We will proceed in orderly fashion. I'd like to ask for your cooperation in the following. Everyone will be given the opportunity to be heard. When you address the commission, begin by stating your name and address and speak slowly and clearly into the microphone, which apparently you have to come up and sit in the chair and face into the microphone to be heard. The purpose of the hearing for the planning commission to hear and consider the pertinent facts and take action relating to the comprehensive plan amendment docket. And if we'll first have the staff report, then the comments from the applicant, which we don't have tonight, and then opponents, proponents, and anybody else, and then comments from the staff in response to those comments, and then questions from the planning commission. So from there, let's move into the staff report. Thank you.
My name is Emily Weimer with AHBL. This is a legislative public hearing for the 2022 Comprehensive Plan Annual Amendments. And I do have our PowerPoint, if we can get that up. Working on sharing the screen. Okay. For those of you that aren't familiar with comprehensive planning, the comprehensive plan is the city's vision for the next 20 years of growth. It contains the vision that the city council has adopted and some goals and strategies of how to achieve the vision of development in the city. So every year, the state allows annual amendments to the comprehensive plan. There are a lot of requirements on processing these as set by state law and your municipal code. So it's already been through quite a few steps before we even got to tonight. So there are 9 total amendments proposed in what we are calling a docket. We have to look at the cumulative impacts of all of the proposals. So we'll talk about them, each individual items, and then the cumulative impacts of the 9 individual amendments. Go to my next slide. Okay, so I'll just run through each of the amendments. There are 5 map amendments. Map amendment means a change to a site's land use designation. Land use then determines, or it implements, the zoning implements a land use. So each property in a city has both a land use designation and a rezone. Some of these proposals are just for a land use change. Some of them are for a land use and a rezone change. So they'll be processed in addition to this. So CPA, which stands for a Comp Amendment 2022, and application number 1 is for a city park. This is a map change with a rezone. It was initiated by city staff. The land use change is currently residential and small part is agricultural suburban. And the changes to parks. Here is an aerial of the site. There are 2 applications right next to each other. So only that larger parcel up on top where the arrow, is pointing to is CPA 2022-01. This is for a future city park. So that's why it needs to be changed to the parks, land use designation, and rezone to public reserve in order to have that future city park. Next slide. And then on the left is the parcel with the existing land use. On the right is the proposed land use. So you see it just goes to parks. Next slide. Then here's the existing zoning on the left and the proposed zoning on the right. The proposed zoning is, again, public reserve. Next, please. Okay, now next application, CPA 2022-02. So this and the next application are both city initiated map applications brought on by kind of an error in mapping. Benton County recently found out that there are some parcels that should be in Benton City's UGA, but were not mapped as such. So Benton County went ahead and updated all their mapping, rezoned the properties based on their status. So now they are being included in here in order to be mapped as in the city's UGA and assigned a land use designation. So for this one, it's a map change without a rezone because it's in the UGA. So Benton County zones the property. Benton City is only responsible for the land use designation. And we are recommending a land use assignment of agricultural suburban. And it's not really a change because there wasn't a previous designation because it wasn't mapped as in the UGA. The current use is residential, and the zoning is the UGA residential in Benton County. Next slide, please. And this is the ag suburban proposed land use. Yeah, there's commercial to the west. I believe there's a store, and then to the south, there's a gas station. But since this parcel is used for residential, we're recommending the agricultural suburban because it is also in the floodway and a floodplain. And ag suburban is the recommended land use designation for that critical habitat. Next slide, please. The third application is the second of the applications that are from the UGA mapping error. So this is actually a group of 4 parcels with one owner. So they're just being grouped together. It's in unincorporated UGA, no current assignment. The land use that we are recommending to staff is residential. If you go to the next slide, please. And this is why we're recommending residential. It's surrounded by residential. To the west is outside the UGA, but to the east is the existing UGA, and it's all residential designation. So we thought it was best to continue that designation. Our fourth application actually has an applicant, the Olson Family LLC, and we do have the applicant here. This is a map change with a rezone, change from commercial to residential, and a rezone of C1 to R-3, which is their higher density residential district. It's located off of Horn Drive, and it's north of the high school. Next slide, please. On the left, the existing land use, it's all commercial, and on the right is the requested designation of residential. Next, please. And here's the zoning map. It is next to some R3. If some of the commissioners remember from last year, that little parcel, I don't know how to describe this. It's adjacent to Horn Drive. It's a little square that was processed in last year's amendment, and council approved it as R3. And a question was brought up, why isn't more of this R3? So the applicant came back this year and applied for R3. It's currently agricultural use, but the applicant has indicated they wish to develop the property. Next, please. Okay, in addition to those map amendments, we also have text amendments. And these are 3 text amendments that were prepared in coordination with the city engineer of Ellen of Spink Engineering. File 7 is for coordination with Benton County and the Kiona Irrigation District to extend the existing multimodal trail up north. We just added goals to continue this coordination that's happening. File 08 is a parks amendment for the pros section. There is the current city park in the planning process that I mentioned that's related to file 01, that new city park. And we also added information on city parks that have that the city has obtained since our last update. So the neighborhoods of Blacktop Estates and Mountain View Meadows dedicated parkland during their subdivision process. So we added information on those new potential city parks. We also updated the 14th Street Wildlife Area, which I believe was finalized in 2021. So we added some information on that. And the last text amendment 9 was really spearheaded by Alan Rainey. There's a lot of work been done between him and Benton County and BFCOG, which is the Benton Franklin Council of Governments, which is the regional transportation organization for Benton and Franklin counties. There's been a lot of coordination for planning roads between the jurisdictions. So we added some information on that. Alan also added some information on level of service and exactly how that's determined. And then finally, we attached to the appendix this traffic study technical memorandum that was conducted earlier this year or last year, which includes some traffic volumes. So those were all suggested by Alan Rainey. And then we have some additional mapping updates. One, we corrected that UGA boundary that the county found. So all the maps will be updated to show the correct UGA. And 2, there's a couple maps in the document that show the floodway. We recently were given an updated shapefile, which is our geographic software for mapping from FEMA that shows a more properly delineated floodway location. So we just replaced that shapefile with a new one because it's more accurate. It's from FEMA. So we updated the maps on that. Next page, please. We also had a proposal for a UGA revision. So this proposal was to remove certain acreage and add in other acreage. So essentially a swap of no net gain. We'll hear from the applicant tonight. We received some last minute information from Department of Commerce, which is the letter I handed out to the commissioners. There's a new state law passed this year that Commerce is saying limits UGA swaps to only a certain time frame. And so our time frame for Benton County will be 2026. So they are recommending pulling this application and processing it at a later date. So the applicant will speak to that tonight. If they want to withdraw the proposal, then they can do that tonight. If not, we can still do more talking, and we can, I recommend keeping this public hearing open and extending it to your next planning commission meeting if the applicant would like more time to work with us on this letter that was sent yesterday. So we'll hear from the applicant, see what they would like to do. Next slide, please. Okay, so notice was published as required in the municipal code. It was published in newspaper, letters were sent out, and it was posted in various places. For comments received, Benton County submitted an informational comment, which was kind of negated by this Department of Commerce comment. So that we received that late yesterday. And those were the only comments we've received. If you go to my next slide. There are 8 criteria as set in the municipal code on how to review a comprehensive plan amendments. And those are the 8 criteria. I won't read through all of them, but we have answered all the criteria in the staff reports. We believe that all the criteria are met. Next. Next step. So we'll hear from the applicant and then get a recommendation on how we treat this one application. Once the planning commission decides on what you'd like to do, we'd ask you to forward a recommendation to the city council. The city council may hold their own public hearing, and it's the city council's authority to adopt all or some or none of the amendments. And that's all I have tonight. We do have, I think, a few people here to speak on that. And then, of course, I'm available to take any questions.
Okay, should we have the applicant speak in conjunction, or how shall we go about doing?
Yeah, I would invite
this?
him up. I think that's,
Okay,
yeah.
please
you'd like
come
to-
forward. You must sit down
yeah.
and speak into the microphone, or we'll make you do it all over again.
Could we take the slides down for right now? Or do we want to leave them up?
Oh, you can take him down.
Commission, my name is Troy Phillips. I represent Olson Brothers Ranches Incorporated and its subsidiaries, Olson Family LLC and Olson Brothers LLC respectively. So, yeah, I don't really know where to, what really questions folks have tonight, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that are brought up. And I have to apologize. The sniffles going around the house. So we got a 4-month-old baby and a toddler at home that's been passing around. So I'm sound funny. That's why I apologize for that. Yeah, so with regard to the UGA swap application, which was the latter item Emily referenced, we received this letter from the Department of Commerce that basically says we now have a formal process in the RCW to handle UGA swaps. Where in the past, it's my understanding that that hasn't really been a thing.
Could you speak more into the microphone, please?
Yes, sir. My apologies. So I'll just back up. We received this letter from the Department of Commerce. I received it earlier this morning, actually, and in reviewing it, it sounds like the state now has created a process for handling a UGA swap, where in the past that hasn't been a formalized process. Again, this is my understanding of it. I think as an organization, we're welcome and open to following this new process, because frankly, trying to figure out how to go about doing what seems like would be common sense for our application and getting that through the number of different agencies, including the county, the city, and then also at the state level, has been a hassle. So at this point in time, I think, we're comfortable saying we'll withdraw that UGA swap proposal. And then at this point, then that would leave the one item, what we would refer to as our high school cherry orchard block, that we're moving forward with the application to have rezoned from commercial to residential. As Emily mentioned earlier, last year, we converted a 2-acre parcel with road frontage along the highway. And then, it sounded like the consensus at the time was, well, why aren't you doing the rest of that orchard? In addition to that, at which point, we kind of went back together as a board and determined that was a reasonable move for us at that time. So we resubmitted the application shortly thereafter, and that brings us to today. As an aside, just from an operational standpoint, our intent is we're a commercial farming operation and we intend to continue to farm. But it is increasingly difficult and challenging to farm in the middle of a town. And there are frustrations and things that, we feel like we can't always control. And I'll just use an example that, these orchards right next to the high school or right off the highway are an attractive nuisance. And so it's common to find, kids on their lunch break out, in the orchards doing who knows what, or after school or before school. And to try and run an operation with that level of interference it poses a significant challenge. And so for us, there's a lot of liability that comes from continuing to farm this ground. And although as much as we would like to, I just don't think that this is a long-term solution for any farmer in that location. Unfortunately, we acquired these ranches a few years ago in a larger transaction, and they just seem to be nestled within Benton City. And I love and appreciate the fact that these orchards have been kind of a part of the community and part of the community's identity. But as these inward pressures grow on us, it's becoming more and more challenging as an organization to make sense of that from a financial and a risk and liability standpoint. Those are my initial comments. Any
Okay.
questions?
Questions, commissioners? Questions from the public? Hearing none? How do we administratively?
I think someone else might want to speak if you want to ask.
Oh, I did not
Is there
see
any other subjects? Are there other properties?
Yeah, anything.
anything to do with this topic.
Or is this his topic?
I think,
Okay, well, I have.
yes, please. I apologize. I didn't notice that you.
My name is John Rutherford. I live at 6604 West OIE. I am the owner of 2203, which is actually 3 parcels, not 4. I'm just kind of concerned to why you would want to turn it into a residential area because of where it's located. To the west is an orchard which has a setback of 150 feet. So basically that cuts it right in half. So no residentials can be, nobody can live in that area of the setback. Another reason why is the 2 lower parcels are considered wetlands based on, and I obtained this map out from the county maps. So it's all designated as wetlands. So I'm not sure how that attributes to your thinking or decision-making of wanting to make this a residential area. Right now, it's agricultural. And I tend to use it as an agriculture purpose in the near future, so. That's what I have to say about it.
I just wanted to make sure. So you're talking about the piece of property that is across the bridge? Or,
It's that one.
oh, okay, that's what, we didn't have the graph up. So I'm trying to get to the right location with you. So what are we looking at?
So right to the west there is an orchard, and according to the county, there's a 150-foot setback that runs right along that orchard. So basically no residential homes can be built in that area.
Yeah,
Can you go to the next slide?
I believe we have someone who would like to respond. Is that?
Again, Troy Phillips, the Olson Brothers entities. I just wanted to comment in addition to Mr. Rutherford's comments. Olson Brothers also owns the adjacent orchard to the west and the orchards to the south. I would tend to agree. And I would also just second that Mr. Rutherford's property is probably in its highest and best use in its current state. It is on the side of a hill into a seasonal flooding area with irrigation runoff in there. And for any developer to try and attempt to put any housing there would pose a significant infrastructural challenge, first of all. And second of all, that would again, I don't know that a person could build to code in a site and location like that. So we would support his request to have that removed from the zone change.
And here's the map you're going to be passing around. There's the map that shows the wetlands and that basically takes pretty much the total, the entire two lower parcels.
Yeah.
Even though I've got an agricultural use, I mean, it does get wet in that area.
Yeah, so changing the land use won't affect what you're able to do with it. You can keep on farming. It won't cause a rezone. The current zone is in line with this proposed use. There's tons of farms that are in residential land use. The other land use options are commercial, which I don't think anyone would think that was a good idea for a commercial location. Manufacturing, also not a good idea in that location. Parks, that's solely for city designated parklands. And the agricultural suburban is for the city's floodway.
Now,
And-
if you read your definition in your code, it just doesn't really sound right. It doesn't really compare. I mean, so.
I think I put in the staff report, the definitions of the land use designations. Let me see if I can pull that up. And I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it doesn't. Because it's the topography and the natural area. It doesn't really make sense to develop, a neighborhood in there. But we believe that this is the most appropriate land use out of the options that the city has. Yeah, I'm looking for the comprehensive plan, but thank you for that. The comprehensive plan has a different designation. Okay.
So this is Commissioner Wallace. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. So we have an agreement, we have a proposal for the modification of the comprehensive plan to address this wetland area. We have two applicants that have came forward and they said they're okay removing that new rezone or. So can we make a motion just to remove that aspect from this action?
Yeah, if I could try to clarify, it's not a rezone. It needs a land use designation. So if there is an alternative option, then you can recommend that.
Yes,
an
and you're looking for the
alternative.
alternative now or or.
Wow,
what-
there's
what
not
the-
really
right,
an,
right,
yeah,
exactly. We are limited to
the land use.
Yes.
Since I'm here, and again, Troy Phillips of Olson Brothers, and this is just for my own edification and understanding. So if the intent in practice then is to just change the land use, the only true effect on the landowner would be the tax base or the rate in which they're taxed and the type of classification of that land use, correct? So it would be taxed at a residential assessment rate or versus an agricultural assessment rate. Is that what we're really talking about here? Because it sounds like there's really,
No.
you're coming forward saying that there's no real differentiation here. We're not changing the zone. It still can be used as agriculture. So what is the point in doing it? I'm trying to
That's-
understand that
I'm
myself.
trying to start.
Yes.
So it needs a designation.
And the designation would drive its tax rate, right?
The assessor, I believe, goes off of the current use, and that's not based on the zone. And again, Benton County zones the property.
That's not correct. I'm one of those people.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Wallace and I am one of those people that had my property I'll call it zoned. I was ag suburban. We did one of these site-wide,
Mhm.
everything goes residential. I was one of those.
Okay,
And it affected my tax base.
okay, but that's zoning. This is not zoning. We're not zoning this.
Land use, whatever. I'm still using it. I still got pasture on it, but it's zoned resident. I never zoned it.
Okay, okay,
Nobody in my family, 100 and almost 100 years, 90 years been there. Nobody ever rezoned it. When it changed, my taxes went up.
Hmm.
So I want common understanding. There are implications of the decisions we make more than paperwork and administrative documentation. So if maybe we should if we want to, I don't know what to do at this point, maybe leave it open. You had talked about leaving the public hearing open for a continuation until we can clarify.
Sure.
I may
Yeah.
be, I
Well,
may be
would you like
wrong,
to
but
clarify?
I'm telling you, my taxes went up.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Again, this is not zoning. It will not impact
Yeah.
it unless it's annexed into the city, which is probably 20 years out.
Okay, and that's another distinction. I am in city limits and you're in the urban
He's
growth area. Yes.
Unincorporated.
Okay, so that's the distinction there. Feel it for the moment. So, okay, there is a distinction
And I can guide you to where the different land use designations are defined in the comprehensive plan. It's number 25, page 25 of the comprehensive plan. I can read through them if you'd like, but we have ag, suburban, residential, commercial, manufacturing, light industrial, government, and parks. Would you like to request a different designation?
It seemed to be more appropriate if it was a agricultural suburban,
Okay.
based on your definition here.
I can read the definition. The AS land use category is intended for lands that are rural in nature and have sufficiently large lots at one dwelling unit per 1/2 acre density on the city's floodway areas. This land use allows for the maintenance of certain animals and farm crops, while at the same time establishing and maintaining a living environment for high standards for residential use. And you do have the comprehensive plan in your packets if you'd like to look at any of those definitions.
yes, and I'm familiar with them. And one of them, and while we're just kind of having an open discussion about this, one of the things that I've always had a problem, and maybe since we're talking about this, about these limited designations is why do we not have parks and open spaces? Not all open spaces. The best open spaces are not parks, in my opinion, and this would be ideal for that type of a situation if we can modify, to make that more encompassing versus something that's irrigated and mowed and to have truly open spaces. But that's, I don't know. I have to take that up with, I don't know, Department of Ecology or somebody.
It would be a good idea for an amendment for next year if you'd like to suggest one.
I would love to make a motion to take that up as an amendment. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, we won't be involved.
That's
but yeah,
okay. If you will
can
put that on the
Yeah,
list,
I can-
I will follow it up.
Yeah.
I will spearhead that.
Yeah,
Well, sort of. They won't let me because I'm on the commission. I'll have to quit. So,
yeah, that would be a great topic for next year's amendment.
okay.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Jenny McComb, City Event, City Code Enforcement. So I just kind of had a question. I see that ag suburban for the land use is designated for the floodways. Is that because of the limited use of the floodways? So with Rutherford's, you've got critical wetlands, is that what it is? Or so is that has limited use as well?
Yes, different. This was created because floodways and floodplains are regulated differently. Those
Right.
are a special animal. And
Yeah.
I think Jenny's well familiar with working with the Department of Ecology and FEMA. And I'm not sure the background of where this district came from, but I believe it was because of the limitations of the floodway a few years ago. They created this zone because they didn't know what else to designate the floodway.
Gotcha. I just didn't know if maybe the limitations from their land as well would fit in with the limitations of.
Yeah, and that's a great question. It's a great comparison. There's a lot of wetlands that aren't in ag suburban. There's steep slopes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unbuildable land, but it has to have a land use designation.
Right.
Thanks.
Do you want to see the comprehensive plan? If there's a designation that you'd like?
You said the comp plan was gonna open next year. Do you know when that'll open about?
Yes, it is set in your municipal code, and I believe the deadline is the last working day in January, or it's July, excuse me.
Oh, July. Uh-oh.
City council can adopt an alternative schedule, which we had to do this year because we hadn't finished the previous year's amendments.
Okay.
Excuse me, I don't know whether you can hear, but Michelle has something to say. Go ahead, Michelle.
Go up because you were in the city, and if they don't plan on selling it, and
I apologize, Michelle. We cannot hear you. Can you start over, please?
yes, your property is within the city limits, Miss Wallace, and that's why your tax base went up because of your home and your structures.
Yeah, we've already got that.
If they're continuing farming, and they're not in the city limits, that will not change their tax base. So rezoning the property will not be harmful to them. But in the future, if they decide to sell it and to developers, that will start the process all over with different ownership. So if they are planning to farm the property, it really won't make any difference if we rezone it tonight. That's it.
Okay, could y'all hear Michelle?
Yes, yes, we did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion?
So your purpose of zoning it as residential would be for what reason, rather than agricultural suburban?
Just to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The purpose of a land use designation is to guide future development. So this plan looks 20 years out. So if you're annexed into the city would zone your property based on that land use.
In other words, they would just strong arm me and tell me you're annexed.
There are
Yes.
There are a few different ways for annexation. The most common is the 60% petition method, and that means 60% of the assessed value ownership would have to approve of it. We've had one annexation in the past 10 years that I'm aware of, and that was just one property owner. And if you are interested in applying next year to de-annex a property, I know that process as well. Not de-annex, remove from the UGA. If you would like to consider that in the future, I can help you with that too.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, all I want to continue doing with it is what I'm currently doing agriculturally, and I hope it doesn't affect my tax base. And I'm happy.
Okay. You could reach out to the Benton County assessors. They would have more information on tax rates.
Oh,
But I really, really don't think it would impact that because we're not zoning the property. You're outside of city limits. And the use hasn't changed.
More discussion?
Jeannie, this is Punchy here.
Yes.
I hear that Jeannie, you have a lot of concerns about what's going on here, and I have that same thing. I see we've had in the past of issues of what you have already brought up and about the zoning and changes and what has been done and what hasn't been done. And I see you bring up these issues. I think we need to get into that. So I hear that's what you're saying. Am I correct?
I think we do not at this meeting. I actually think as a commission, I think we should take up some extraneous topics such as this that we're stumbling over, like the definition of ag suburban and such that you and I, Dawn, have both endured.
Yes.
We are very familiar with this and maybe in a workshop setting, but yes, I do think this is worthy
Thank you. I agree with you. Thank you.
So we'll discuss that in another meeting and decide how to proceed. Commissioners, do you have any discussion, input, advice, how to proceed with this now?
No,
Dawn, any thoughts?
No, I don't.
Michelle? Anybody want to make a proposal?
Hmm.
Motion?
I
Wait,
motion we-
Hold on just a second. Michelle has something.
Okay,
Sure, and Dawn, because we really don't know the tax difference it will be for if it's annexed. So maybe more discussion needs to take place and more information needs to come forward before we
Yes.
can make a finalization on this particular property.
Yes. That's true. Thank you, Michelle.
okay. So let's try to cobble together as a commission a motion to close this. And please help me with these parcel numbers, pieces and parts. Because we have several issues going on that I believe that we can move forward with and recommend to the council for approval. Some of these questions we may want to discuss further. If I only had the list of all the parcels at hand.
I'll make the motion.
I think we need to, the tricky parts, we're gonna have to distinguish what we want to approve and what we want to exclude.
Yeah, and I can help
Exclude
write
number
that.
3 and keep
Okay,
one question. I make a motion that
Is that what she's looking for, that docket list?
And we do want this to move as a package, so if you are not ready to vote on one of the items, then we'd recommend that you wait until all the items are have a recommendation to move together as a docket to the city council.
okay. Okay, commissioners, what do you think?
I
Should we,
move that we table this until we have further recommendations.
I second that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Can I ask,
Please, please.
what should I do?
All in favor? Aye.
Wait, Don, we have to have a second.
Okay, okay.
All right. Michelle said she's second.
Oh, okay.
I think we may have a question here before we proceed with the motion. What was your question again? I apologize.
Yeah, so, what is the commission requesting? for
I
next meeting?
believe we are requesting for either a continuation of this hearing or to, how did you say?
Table it.
Table it.
Is there anything I should do to prepare for next meeting?
Do you want to do a workshop with this or what?
I,
Would it help if we went back to the slides and you could go through each number and say number 1, okay, we don't have any questions or comments on that. Or
Julianne, could you come to the mic, please?
Oh, that's what I was gonna do, but she said
Yeah.
that we had to do the whole thing as a package.
right.
You can talk about it, but if you're not ready to write, we still want the recommendation as a docket.
But
But
we
you
have,
can go through each application and talk about it.
I request.
please come forward.
Again, Troy Phillips of Olson Brothers Ranches. I guess my question is, if the intent is to move the docket to city council, that doesn't necessarily mean that any of these have to be, or all of them all at once have to be approved or unanimously declined, correct? Can't they make individual recommendations on that docket specifically? So options 1, 2, 5, and 12 or whatever be recommended that the city move forward, and option 3
Mm.
be withheld. Is that?
They would
Yeah.
have to go together
Then
as a docket.
why is,
But that
They,
would be
you look at the
recommendation.
cumulative impact of the amendments. So you can recommend approval of 2 and denial of 5. But we bring the whole docket to the city council.
I think that's what the commission is attempting to do.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Thank you.
Our only concern, I think, from I guess a citizen standpoint is just that, you know, these processes do take a significant amount of time, and every time that one of these do get postponed, it's another month or 2 months or 3 months down the road. And you know, I can speak on behalf of the corporation, and I'm sure from resident standpoint, that kind of perpetual kicking the can down the road is very frustrating and very painful to, you know, when you're just trying to make a simple transaction or transition. So that's my 2 cents, even though it wasn't solicited.
No, thank you. And please, before you leave, why don't you stay here and help us?
Okay, if we want to go back to the PowerPoint, we can,
Okay,
yes.
There's one.
Excuse me, Millian, Michelle has something she wants to say to you. Okay, go ahead.
We can't hear you.
Oh, wait just a second. They say they can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I've been at this about 8 or 9 years, rezoning. And in previous meetings like this, we have, as a group, voted one at a time for each rezoning. And the ones that we decided we weren't sure of, or that we needed more information on, we tabled it, sent it back to the city council for more information so that we could make a informed choice. So I don't know why we couldn't do that here, voting on each different rezoning, because they're all for different purposes.
Yeah, you can vote on each one.
okay.
They just have,
Why don't we do that?
Okay, Michelle, make a motion so that we can move forward to just at least clarifying that we're voting on each one of these individually. And then we'll do separate motions on each and every one of the separate entries so we can keep them straight in our records and our minds and our mind's eye as I'm looking at the diagram in front of me at the moment.
I make a motion that our staff indicates which properties that we are okaying and which one we are not, so that we will be clear on which ones are okayed and which ones are not.
Okay, I'm gonna help you clean that up a little bit, Michelle, because what we need to do is that's going to be in regard to what we recommend for approval to the city council, which would equate to approval, and those that are tabled for further consideration. Is that what I understand? Was that your motion, Michelle?
Is that your motion? She said yes.
Yeah, we're just trying to use the right. That's what we're going to do. So the next, I will make a motion that we move through each of the docket numbers for approval for consideration by city council. And then for the other docket numbers to clarify which of those we'd like to have further research done on those before we make a final decision on those components.
so this one is application 01.
Sorry, we have a question. Oh, were you pointing? I'm
Pointing.
sorry, Millian. You're confusing me. You're pointing.
Sorry. Yeah, so O1 is that larger
Hmm.
triangle parcel for the city park.
Excuse me, we didn't have a second on that.
Right, we have not completed the motion of how.
Okay,
we're trying to
okay.
conduct the business.
all right, thank you.
Okay, is Michelle speaking now, Margaret, or who's speaking?
That was me, and I will mute myself.
Okay, but we have not made a motion and voted on Michelle's motion to proceed, so we need to do that this moment. So I will second Michelle's motion to address each of the dockets separately. Commissioners, how shall you vote? Don,
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Michelle? Well, you made the motion, so you're there. Jeannie Wallace, yay. Okay. So that one's complete. Now we're gonna make another motion to address each of the dockets individually and vote whether to forward those to the city council for approval or consideration and which ones to table. So with that, we'll take a vote on that.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve. Sections or land plots 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. And we table 3 and 6.
Okay, and I'm gonna give everybody a couple of minutes to get on the same page, commissioners, so we know what we're looking at and voting on.
You want to refresher? So
Yes, please, Millyanne.
that's, or Emily. Yeah, so this is CPA 2022-01, which is the park parcel, land use, map change, and a rezone. This one is CPA 2022-02, land use map amendment, no rezone. This is 03, a land use amendment, no rezone. This is 04, the Olson property, land use amendment, and a rezone. And then we have 7, 8, 9, which are our 3 text amendments. And we skipped over number 6, which is that UGA swap that is being withdrawn.
And then number 5, and then the little guy there.
Yeah, that little 5.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I
Mhm.
forgot to speak about on that one. That is city property. It's for utilities. In the 2017 comprehensive plan, we believe it was accidentally changed to residential. It doesn't need a rezone because it is already zoned as the needed zoning for that public property. We believe we are correcting this mistake that we found.
The location of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lift station.
Mhm.
That help.
Yes, it helped me. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, but it sure helped me.
Oh, and I do
Thank
have-
you so much.
I do have one more piece of information if you'd like. The zoning of the 2 UGA related applications, so his and the other one are the same zone by Benton County. So these designations will not impact the zoning.
Mhm, okay,
I did remember they're both the same zone.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
Is there anything I can prep for that application to bring back to you?
I'm sure you can. I just can't think of it at the moment. Let's complete because you made your motion, so I'm gonna go ahead and second it before we leave that. Commissioners?
Yes.
Michelle? Michelle, we can't hear you if you're
Oh,
voting.
She said yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Oh, you made that.
I made the motion.
And me, Wallace, yes. I
Okay.
have to count my own vote. Okay. Are we done with that component?
Yes, I
Part
think
of
so.
it. Okay, that part of the hearing,
Nice
I
part.
think is done. So
Are you closing the public hearing? Or
yes,
are we,
well, I don't know. Are we, do we have anything else to cover or?
you can keep it open until the next meeting if you'd like to.
Yeah.
keep Taking public comments, or you could. close it.
That's what I was gonna ask you because I didn't know if we could do a continuation, leave it open. So instead of having to do this in between, that's where I was going, honey. I was trying to do the quick, easy, cheap stuff.
I believe you can continue it. It's legislative, so I don't know if it's quite the same. But you can continue it to our next meeting if Margaret has the date already.
Hmm.
And that would be in December.
So
Margaret,
What would be the date?
for
Do
the
you have
next
the-
planning,
do you have the date?
I don't have a date.
Do it on the 6th, a Tuesday again?
We can't do it on the same time as the council meeting.
Oh, no, sorry.
We need to seriously set a set date. for
I
your
can't do
guys'
Wednesdays. so.
Hearings,
There is a
Okay.
set date.
either
It's
first
usually-
Wednesday or last Thursday.
last
Thursday
day of the month.
Well, that would run into. Christmas.
yeah.
But that would be
around
the
the
29th. The
holidays.
last Thursday would be the 29th.
Well, we can't do it. We don't want to do it on Christmas holidays, do we?
So we're gonna be pushing this back in January. Can we even?
We would recommend that you keep pushing it forward if you can, since we do have an applicant and his application can go forward.
Hmm.
And I agree. I'm just saying, if we don't do it now on the 7th, it. If we don't complete it, then it's gonna end up being pushed back to January. would
I know I
think.
can't do that.
Let me look at my calendar. Hold on.
I know I can't.
So you cannot be here.
Right.
Um,
On the 7th. I work every Wednesday and Saturday.
okay, if we can get a quorum though,
Mhm.
we
Okay.
can move on with that. Dawn and Michelle, will you be available on December 7th so that we could have a quorum to conduct business on December 7th? Lynn will not be available.
Will you be available December the 7th?
I think so.
Yeah. That's good.
Yes, we have a comment from the peanut gallery come up.
I don't understand what the intent is of pushing this.
Peanut gallery.
The commission hope to accomplish by delaying the determination this evening.
What we've done is to do a partial, we're pushing part of the business, like your component, forward to the council so they can do their.
I don't think that can be
Oh.
done. It's
It goes together.
Oh.
so if I could, my
Oh.
understanding of what just took place is that the commission made its comments and took its favors in support of or without support of the action items that were on the docket, and that moves forward to council.
Hmm.
But it's my understanding that the commission wants to further discern and better understand
Mhm.
some nuanced items as it pertained to, I think, docket number 4. But that shouldn't necessarily change or impact the docket moving forward to council. That's a separate. So you would want to, I would think. Can I not say that? What am I doing?
So the docket goes together to council. So once all the items have a recommendation, then they get brought to council.
Right, but I thought the commission just voted on all 7 of those items and provided what they were in favor of and what they were not in favor of to move forward.
Just a second.
I thought one was tabled.
Right, we had, remember, we had a whole list to send forward and then we had basically plucked out 2. And said we want to further consideration of those. So to move the docket forward, that's where, yeah, we're getting kind of nebulous here and I'm kind of struggling too. Yeah, I tried to make this work. Dawn, Michelle, you guys were my predecessors. Can you help me here?
Yeah, Michelle has something to say.
I thought that also
Go ahead, Michelle.
held off because of a new letter. Maybe I misunderstood.
No, you're correct. One
So
was
that's why I
withdrawn.
included. Yeah.
We can't hear you, Michelle. If you are speaking, we cannot hear you.
They can't hear you.
You can't hear.
Tell me,
Okay.
can you hear now?
No.
Give us some time to make a better decision.
We cannot
Yeah.
hear.
Can you
Michelle,
hear me?
no, they can't hear you. Let me,
See this? They need to table it so that it isn't dead for a year.
okay. She said, you need to table it so it won't be dead for a year.
That's what I said.
I,
4 and 6.
we're trying to move the entire packet forward is my understanding.
So can I ask?
Millian,
why
please
it's-
help us.
Can I ask why it's being tabled?
Well, we're just trying to, that's why I'm trying to understand what she's tabling.
So what Emily is saying is how it has to be. The whole thing has to go. You have to make your
Right.
decision on all of them before it can go to
Mhm.
council. You can't send just some of them. And so what you can do, what we have done in the past is that you as a planning commission have said, we approve 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7.
Mhm.
And we do not approve number 3.
Okay, let's.
So you
just-
can do that, and then council has to make the decision.
Okay,
If you want more time to think about number 3, then you continue the public hearing and you tell Emily what information and questions you want answered.
yeah,
She does research, she comes back, she tells you
right,
what she's figured
Right.
out. And then you vote on that one, and as a package, they all go to city council.
right.
Does that help?
If I
That's what
could
I thought.
comment, I
Right.
would just reiterate that the individual that made the request to not move forward with item number 4 gave that presentation to the commission, and the commission unanimously voted in agreement with that individual to not move it forward. Am I incorrect in stating that?
Well, that's
So-
what, yeah, we're
Right.
kind of
We
getting,
So it
take
seems like
3, not the 4, which is what you wanted by the high school.
Sorry, I must have misspoke. I meant number 3,
Number
Mr.
3.
Rutherford's property. Number 6 is not tabled as we are
Right.
removing that application
Yeah. okay,
altogether.
So that's what I thought.
So the intent of tabling the determination, which was unanimous by the commission and in favor of the landowner,
Mm.
doesn't seem to merit any benefit for anyone as a part of this conversation. I think the intent of tabling it was to have a broader discussion in future instances on how to handle such in a situation as a
and you are
commission.
correct, sir. We have too many motions on the table
Yeah.
right now. That's what the problem is. I think, and if we just withdraw that last motion, it should resolve this whole thing. About the tabling. If we withdraw the motion.
So my
table.
understanding is that the commission would say that they would want the docket to move forward with items 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. And not approve items 3 and 6.
Yes,
which is
and
what I
that's
said.
what we did. And then we had the table.
So
motion.
instead of saying table, not approve. I'll redo the motion.
There you go.
Recommend denial.
It's the terminology. What's happening here, folks, is we're trying to do business and these archaic Robert's Rules of Order, which really are critical and they have usefulness and they are necessary, but trying to commit them to memory and function makes it a little tough. Because most of us don't do this, but once every couple months.
Okay. So I remove my previous motion and I make a new motion. I recommend that we forward to city council a recommendation on areas 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9, and recommend denial for 3 and 6.
I
I'll
second.
second it.
Aye, that's Commissioner Wallace, aye.
Margaret,
How's Michelle's vote?
Michelle, how do you vote? Huh? It's 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and denying 3 and 6. All right, let me say that. She said if you don't just table 3 and 6, it takes a whole year to start over. Is that correct?
It will move on to city council and they will either uphold the recommendation or vote how they.
It'll move to city council and they will either vote for it or against it.
Well,
He voted, he voted for it.
okay, I'll vote yes, but I think it's a mistake.
Okay, motion carries. Oh, Lord. Hey, I think we got a vacancy on the planning commission. Anybody want to join? Oh,
everybody, the county, and they can't.
It's fun.
I think I'm gonna have to have some help with these minutes.
yeah, I think we all will, Margaret. I apologize. Yeah, we have a workshop.
Yes.
And okay, I know I made you mad, but come on. Oh yeah, I guess that was a hearing, wasn't it? I'm gonna close that hearing so we can talk freely now amongst ourselves. For gosh sakes,
All right, so that's it. Yeah.
we
And if
have
I
a
can
work-
get my PowerPoint.
Yes.
please carry on.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. This is more an exciting topic that we're presenting tonight. I do have a PowerPoint. This is the I-82 South sub-area plan.
Yeah.
We were directed by city council, hired by city council and funded specifically to create the sub-area plan. And this is a picture of from the site looking southwest. So if you haven't been out there, it's a really pretty area. Next. Okay, so a little bit about this sub area. It's a huge area that's pretty much undeveloped, 235 acres. Currently, there's just a gas station and that convenience store, which is the Shell, and you can see
Yeah,
that. What?
come on.
What?
Was that you, John?
Okay,
Oh.
Don, if you don't mind muting yourself, please. Okay, so the sub-area plan on this map is that yellow color.
Mhm.
It's right north of some current mining operations. If you drive from the freeway, you might see the berm that they've built up along the border of that mining operation. There are 3 property owners, but the biggest one is DNR, which owns 95%. So that's kind of the big spur of the sub-area plan. DNR is talking about just fencing of the property. So the city wants to know, what should we do with this area? It's huge. undeveloped area, and there's a lot of potential.
I thought we had that 2-night in the summer workshop on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And we kind of voted on some of the things that we liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get to that. Yeah, that was more the beginning of the process. Now we're more at the end. So
Cool.
yeah, you've seen it
It's
from
exciting.
beginning to end. Some of the highlights of this area: easy auto access to the interstate, which is really attractive.
Mhm.
And proximity to the Red Mountain AVA. So those were the two driving forces, or three, because of DNR's decision to dispense the property. Those were the three driving main forces behind this sub-area plan. So the red dashed line is city limits. So the sub-area plan is just right at the city limits, adjacent to the interstate and Jacobs Road, bounded by Field Road to the south, mining operations to that south. And then to the east, there's a little bit of developed residential in the county. And then south of that residential is farmland, and then pretty big slopes up there. Yeah, there's a hiking area in there too. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's been done? We conducted a feasibility study, which is on the city's website. Perhaps Margaret can send out a link to the commissioners if they haven't read it already. There was a market analysis by Eco Northwest. I always get the name wrong. Eco Northwest conducted a market analysis to really kind of drill out what's the potential in developing this area. And then there was the design charrette, which were the series of open houses, which Planning Commission was invited to. I don't know what's going on outside.
Sorry about that.
So a lot of exciting things have already happened. After the two open houses, we sent out a visual preference survey. So we got a lot of good data from that survey. I don't know if anyone here took that survey. Yes, awesome. And after that, the design team, which are our sub-consultants, presented to the city council an analysis of the survey and a summary of what happened at those two open houses, which you were there, a lot of great ideas, a lot of stakeholders in the room, just coming together to talk about what they wanted to see in the future. Next, please. And here's a picture of the design charrette. Do you see yourself? That was held in this room over 2 nights. Pretty good turnout. Next slide, please. And then here's a little table from that Eco Northwest market study. So they looked at the site and the market potentials, very strong suitability for residential development, some site suitability for hospitality, and some strong wine-oriented potential. Next. So we took that study and looked at the site, and we're trying to determine the best use of the site, what's best for Benton City and the future residents. This is our SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I won't read all of them, but I think the strengths are pretty obvious. High visibility from the highway, attractive views, access to the wineries. Some weaknesses: there are some steep slopes on the site, can't be developed. It's by a freeway. That's good and bad. And it's pretty far from the city center and from the existing development of Benton City. Opportunities, we really focused on like a wine village, walkable mixed use development, which is what the city council directed us to review in this plan. Some threats: there are a lot of wine industries already. So how do you make Benton City attractive and unique? There's some business as usual development patterns. The city doesn't have commercial design standards. And of course, there's always funding issues. Next, please. So what's in this plan that we're drafting up? These are the different chapters: introduction, characteristics, our community engagement results. That'll be the survey and the design charrette. We talk about the planning process and vision, and then we have plan elements, just like in the city's comprehensive plan. We look at land use, transportation, recreation, open space, utilities, capital facilities, and community character. And in each of these plan elements, we do have goals and policies. And then finally, we have an implementation framework, because what's a plan without a plan to implement it? So this plan is in the later drafting stages. It's going through some staff review internally at AHBL. We'll send it around for comments. The city engineer will have some input, city staff. And then once we have a good draft ready, we'll send it out to the commission, city council, put it on the website, try to solicit comments. So while it's not ready yet, we wanted to brief commission. Some of you are aware of it and have been involved, so we appreciate all that involvement. We have the market analysis and a few other documents and videos on the city's website page. So Margaret, if you could send out that page, I can give you the link. It's just on the city's website. There's a dedicated page to this plan. There's some great content in there. So we would ask if you have some time to check out those materials before we bring it back to you with a draft for the public hearing. So if you can have time to read some of the background, I think it would be really beneficial for when we bring it back to you, so we don't bombard you with all the materials, so you have time to read them. So we know it will be a lot of reading, so the more you can do in advance, I think be better for your weekends. Okay, so once we get the draft plan, we'll release it, try to get some comments. You will hold a public hearing. We'd love to hear from the community. You will give a recommendation to the city council, and they can hold their own public hearing too, just like any other legislative process. And then they will take action to either adopt or do nothing with it. But yeah, we're really excited for this. It's been over a year in the making. If you have an opportunity to go out to the site, that would be helpful too, to see how the slope goes up quite a bit. Yes, I could answer any brief questions you have right now, or we could wait until the public hearing.
I just was wondering how solidified, the plans are for the activities. I mean, because and this is the citizen side of me, but I hear a lot about walking and trails and drinking wine, but it's not really multi-use. And I'm kind of disappointed about that. Again, to me, that could be a great corridor to open spaces, not parks, open spaces.
You will be happy to know there will be open spaces in the
Good.
plan. So a sub-yard plan is a component of the comprehensive plan. I didn't explain too much about the technicalities. But this plan does suggest land use for this site. So currently it's mostly industrial land use, a little bit commercial. So this plan will change the land use.
Yeah. And
It's light industry along Jacobs Road, but then there's residential. There's gonna be an elementary school. There's 2 parks on that. They're talking about soccer fields and that kind of stuff, and a pool, so that we don't have to send the kids from here, so that we have all that.
yeah,
So-
yeah, I'm familiar with that aspect of it, but the other side of that, there's desert. And some of us want to be able to access by walking, riding a bike, a horse, other things, getting through there without getting in a vehicle to get to, horse heaven trails or things of that aspect. And I was just curious how that, is there any thought to that
Yes.
yet?
I can't wait for you to read the plan. I think you'll be happy with some of those aspects. In the goals and policies, it's still a draft, but we have recommendations for the city to adopt code to requires, for example, outdoor seating at a cafe. So there's certain things that we're recommending so that we create a more walkable mixed-use community. We're also recommending the creation of a new land use for multifamily.
Hmm.
So,
How about like, I'm talking, seeing in what I'm seeing is we're kind of getting these like suburban type environments built right up in the natural, open spaces.
okay.
And
Do you
there's no
want-
transition. And what I'm
Transitions,
thinking
okay.
is like where people who actually don't want to walk around on asphalt, they want to go walk around on horse heaven or ride a dirt bike or something. How,
Sure.
and I'm just talking out loud. I'm not, don't go write a chapter for me or even a paragraph, but I've been thinking about this because we're really limiting our activities. And it's like, I would like to see more of a transition, I think our greater communities, even in America, we're failing because we're not having these, kind of like the farmer they was talking about right up against the high school. You don't have these transition corridors that kind of, and it impacts how you do business and being able to like ride a motorbike, or when I say dirt bike, I'm talking like, either a dirt bike, like a motorized one, which they used to have one cross track out there. Oh, it was big. It was big. And then the off-road bicycles and stuff. Well, there's not parking up there for people to go throw all their bicycles on and haul them up there and then unload them and go ride. So it'd be great if we could, get on it and ride out there and such. And that's the kind of things I've been thinking that we have this blank page. We're just doing whatever Dave's doing.
Mhm.
So, and those are my personal thoughts, and I'll shut up and let everybody go home now.
I don't know exactly when we will have a draft available for you, if we'll make it in
Okay.
time for your next meeting, but we'll send you more information.
So, and I'm gonna close the meeting. Yeah, everybody done? Okay, we're done. This meeting is adjourned. Question for you. Who do you work with